The beta for the next version of Android, which is Android 11, is available for Pixel phone. Now, a bunch of Android 11 has already leaked, of course, because Google, but it's official now, so I want to get into what the new features are. So to start, every version of Android messes with notifications. So in Android 11, Google is separating out your notifications into 3 really clear and distinct sections with big, obvious labels. There are conversations, alerting notifications, and silent notifications. And the new section here is conversations, which separates out the notifications from your chat apps into their own section at the top. And that lets you do a bunch of things with those notifications. The first thing is you can bubble those notifications, which turns them into these like bubble chat heads that sit on the top of other apps. That's now going to become available to any chat app on Android. Other thing that the conversations lets you do is you can long press on them and you can mark a person's conversation inside a chat app as priority. And what that means is they're going to be able to break through your do not disturb settings. And also when you look at your little notification tray at the top of your screen, you're going to see their face instead of just the icon for the app. There are a few other new things with notifications. So you can more easily control where silent notifications show up. You can keep them from showing up in your status bar or on your lock screen. You can easily switch an app from alerting notification to silent notification by long pressing on it, bringing up some options. You also get a few more controls over how Do Not Disturb works. It lets you customize which apps are able to break through Do Not Disturb in addition to those priority conversations. So there is one other thing to talk about with notifications. You used to have media playback control in your notification shade, and Google's now moving that up into the quick settings. So it's sort of part of the notification shade, but sort of not. Anyway, it's up there at the top now, and when you expand it down, there's going to be a little button that you can press, and when you press it, it will let you choose where your audio goes, Bluetooth headphones or a speaker or wherever. The next interaction zone that Google has beefed up for Android 11 is the power menu. What's new is that Google is putting smart home control buttons underneath that here. You can customize what buttons show up here. You can just tap on stuff to turn lights on and off. You can drag your finger to change brightness. You can also just long press to go in and see more options and so on. This section is powered by the Google Home app, and that's good because it's one less thing that you have to set up. But it does mean that I think that different companies are going to do different things with this power menu. So if you buy a Samsung phone, I would expect to see Samsung Pay and Samsung Smart Home controls in this section here. So that's notifications and power. There's a couple other zones to talk about. There's the home screen, and one of the things you can do here is replace your dock with suggested apps from Android, contextual guesses of what you're going to want to open next. And there's also the multitasking screen, or you might call it the recent screen, and there's 3 new buttons on the bottom here. So if you tap screenshot, it pulls a screenshot of the app that's frontmost in multitasking. You can tap select and it will show you what text is selectable to directly copy in your clipboard, or you can tap share and it'll grab a screenshot of that frontmost app and bring up the share sheet automatically. Speaking of screenshots, when you take one, it no longer goes into notifications. It creates this little interface down in the lower left-hand corner where you can tap share or edit. It's just like the way that the iPhone does it. So location permissions are getting stricter in Android 11. From now on, apps can only ask for 3 different kinds, one time, while the app is open, or just straight up deny. Now, if an app really wants constant background permission, it needs to send you deep into Android settings where you turn on permanent access there. Also, if you hit deny a couple of times when the app asks you for location permission, Android will just tell the app to stop asking you and it won't be able to do it again. Beyond those new features though, what Android 11 is really about is making the stuff that you actually want to do a little bit easier to find. So say you want to text with somebody that's important to you. Their face might be right there in your status bar if they texted you, or their face might be in a bubble that's floating over the apps you're using right now so you can get to it right away. Smart light controls finally aren't buried inside the Google Home app. They're right there in the power menu. And that power menu zone, it sort of makes sense to me. Google says it's like your keys in your wallet. It's the stuff that you put in your pocket to interact with the physical world. And I guess that's why that stuff isn't in quick settings. I mean, I could go on, but the point is that those little decisions of what goes where and why, that's the subtle stuff that ultimately makes a phone feel either intuitive or confusing. And there still is some confusing stuff here. I think settings in Android is getting a little bit out of control, but I can see where Google's trying to go. Like I said at the top, if you have a Pixel, you can install the beta on your phone right now. It's also coming to a few other Android phones this summer, so keep an eye out for news about that. But I wouldn't put it on your main phone because it's a beta and it's still a little bit rough around the edges. But you want me to answer the question, right? Did Google get to where it's trying to go? Does Android 11 make sense? Is it intuitive? Well, I'm gonna wait until the final release of this software in the fall because right now it's still a beta and they're Google and they could totally move stuff around. But I do know that when I review it, I'm gonna be reviewing it on a Pixel because the Pixel is gonna get Android 11 first and every other Android phone is gonna get it who knows when. Google's made some progress in the Android ecosystem of making those updates happen, but it's still not where it needs to be. So while I'm reserving judgment on whether or not Android 11 makes sense, I definitely think that knowing whether or not your phone is going to get it is still way too confusing.